one of my favorite quotes or sound bites, is life is fair, everybody's price is just different. All right, so I've been really thinking about that a lot lately. And there was a video years ago, you probably saw it on the internet, where they had, I don't know how many kids it was, but they had them on a starting line. They were going to do this little race. The race wasn't very far. It was a straight line. Let's just say it was 100 yards. But before they started the race, they started everybody in the same spot. They said, we're going to ask you questions, and if your answer is yes, take a step forward. And those questions were things like, if you grew up and your parents were married, take a step forward. If you grew up and somebody held you accountable to make good grades in school, take a step forward, and so on and so forth. And after like 10, 15 or more questions, then they started the race. So everybody that had a solid upbringing at home got to start the race a lot further, close to the finish line.
Good analogy.
Than everybody else did. And I love that because, what we're going on in the world right now, we're talking a lot about freedom and free even. And free creates lazy, first of all. Okay, so that was what my parents basically figured out is at right around the age of 30 when they said this is it, they were basically saying I'd become lazy. And that's true. That is very true. So you got to be careful especially when it comes to big government, how much they give us because it creates laziness, right? But free isn't fair. That's the catch. Free isn't fair. Freedom isn't fair. But what it does do is it gives you the opportunity, if you make a choice, to act on that choice. In my opinion, that's what free and freedom means is if I choose to do that, I can do it, right? But it doesn't mean, a lot of times we confuse the fact that free is fair or freedom's fair, which means it's going to be given to you. Well, if it's given to you and I didn't get it, that's not fair, right? Even though you may have needed it more. So fair is a feeling.
Well, fair is a feeling. And the reality is, I'm glad I didn't have things handed to me.
That's right.
I'm glad I had to work for it and fight for it, and we didn't have a lot, and we struggled. That struggle makes you stronger. I had those tough coaches on me that drove me to just want to grind, want to fight.
What's the saying? One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So again, I remember the first car that I had. My dad was real smart because I wrecked it in 6 months, like he told me I would. But it was this is 1996, so this is a 20-year-old 40 Econoline van. It wasn't nice. It was one of those things where you had to go outside and start it 20 minutes before you left and sit in the cold car and warm it up and so on and so forth. So, but I didn't appreciate that. And if he had gave me a brand new car, I would have appreciated it the exact same. So, again, what makes it worth it is what you had to go through to get it.
Right.
That's what makes it worth it. Right. So at the end of the day, the more you struggle for something, once you have it, that's what makes it taste so sweet. And it's crazy when you think about it. So we look at the icons of sports like Michael Jordan, or any of them. When I'm constantly reminded, because the longer that their legacy lives on, they become larger than life and even more invincible. But when you watch the Jordan documentary, Derek Jeter was the same way. You realize how hard it was for them and how hard they did work. And they weren't superhuman. They just outworked everybody. They took less time after the championship. They started the next day. And that was the biggest thing, is it was all what they did up here,
Right.
So again, it's so cool to see when you think about Derek Jeter or Michael Jordan, they're talking about how hard it was, man, because you forget that, they become they were just that much better than everybody.
Legends. They're just great. Yeah. They just had the gift. No,
that's right.
They worked harder than everybody.
That's right.
I mean, for sure. It's a commonality, man. That's the thing. You look at, I think there's never been an easier time to be successful than right now, because you got a bunch of weak ass men.
Yes.
And, you can be a savage and a good person, but work harder than everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to be ahead because society is teaching us to be weak.
What's the saying? Nice guys finish last, right? Well, good guys finish first.
Right.
The difference between a nice guy and a good guy is just, nice guy will tell you what he thinks you want to hear. Good guy will tell you the truth, even if it hurts.
Yeah.
So I agree. Nice guys finish last, and good guys will finish first.
Yeah.
So don't be a nice guy, be a good guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's interesting to watch right now. I mean, you got a 15-year-old. He said he's tough. I don't hear that much about 15-year-olds that are tough these days. What makes them tough?
He's been pushed to levels that just nobody else that he has proximity to has been pushed, period. Right? So he don't get much slack. Slack is earned. Okay. So, and at the end of the day, like, he's 15. So, we live in a beautiful place, a beautiful part of town. He rides in nice cars. He gets to eat at restaurants that not everybody gets to eat at. So that's great. And that exposure to that is huge, because I didn't have a lot of exposure to that. And the more exposure that I got to it, the more I realized how attainable it actually was. So that's part of it. But you got to get both sides.
Yeah.
So for instance, when we train in the garage, like prison workout style. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, there's no heat, there's no air. We train in the elements you play in. In February, when it's, -5 wind chill outside, that's how cold it is in the garage. And we're out there busting it. We're doing it. We go out there and we throw, we do everything. So, like, it's just, it's so that he can taste that sweet, what it tastes like when you actually earn something, right? Yeah. So, and not everything has come easy for him, So what I can say is that, when he takes his shirt off to go swimming with his friends, he looks different. He stands out. When other kids are throwing their helmets and acting out in the dugout after failure, that's not him. He's the one that goes up to the next guy up at bat and is going to say, "Hey, man, here's how he got me, and here's how this can help you," type thing. Because, again, he understands it's not about him. This is a team sport, and only the team wins and loses, right? The individual does not. So, learning true leadership that way. But at the end of the day, or at the same time, also understanding, like, for me, there was just certain things that were just unattainable to me as a kid. I just didn't have access to them.
Yeah.
And I can remember even, I won't say I grew up in a scarcity mindset home, but, like, there was a lot of time, instead of saying, how can we afford that? I was told we can't. Yes. On a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I can remember driving, like, by the Governor's Club or whatever, and my dad would look out and be like, sometimes I just want to ask those guys what they do for a living to make that kind of money, right? So it almost seemed like they were them and we were us.
Yep.
And it took me a long time to realize that, like, well, if they can do it, there's nothing stopping me from doing that. At least living in this great country, that is.
That's right. That's right. Well, there's a lot to what you just said. I love it. I love hearing that because, first of all, you mentioned access. Nido Quibin is one of my favorite speakers, and he says, "What is power?" He said, "Is it money in your bank account? What is it?" Like, no, power is access. How many people can you pick up your phone and call?
That's right.
And it's very, very true. Like, can you pick up your phone and get something done with the access? Had a really interesting deal today, a couple hours ago, probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars, just because of access. And it happened like that. Like, wow, this is a big deal. Like, and I told the guys, I can't believe that y'all are calling with this because we can easily get this done and we have the network to do it.
That's
it's
right.
Like really exciting stuff. But it was access. If we didn't have the access, we'd be like, oh, what do we do? It's just having that access. And we've earned that access. And that's the other thing. Access, as you were just saying, but access is earned.
100%.
We've earned our way into certain rooms or certain relationships or certain friends. You build trust with people and they say, hey, I'll vouch for Nick over here.
Yeah.
He's a good dude. I've known him since I was a kid.
Yep.
Or since we played baseball. You have those relationships.
That's right. That's right.
And, but we didn't necessarily, the same thing with the scarcity mindset. So there's a lot, I'm unpacking a lot of what you said because it's my life growing up too.
That's right.
My parents, didn't know what the difference between abundance and scarcity was. So it was a lot of the same thing. I just wonder what they do. I mean, same type of comments and, lots of struggle. And I always wanted, like, for instance, I remember, like, my parents would buy me these Walmart tennis shoes and because we were having trouble, and I always wanted nicer shoes. I always wanted the Jordans, but we couldn't do that. And it always bothered me. I was always like a little embarrassed as a kid over what I would wear and those type of things. But I'm glad because that has caused, a drive to succeed. I wasn't given things. I wonder if we were like rich kids, we probably wouldn't be successful. You know, like if we were rich kids and learned like, didn't have the experience that we had, well, we would have turned out a lot different. I'll put it that way.
Well, you know, you rarely meet a person that grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth that don't have money just because, again, that's just what they're accustomed to. However, there's going to come a time where they're going to come head to head with somebody that came from, like the Rocky movies were the best at describing that. You know, like this kid came from nothing. He's, you know, he knows nothing but this. He knows nothing but the streets, so on and so forth. He's dangerous. Yeah. Right? Well, you know, the person that everything was kind of handed to him type thing, there's a toughness that there's a thickness to their skin they don't have yet, right? So at the end of the day, they're exposed and they're weak. They just don't know it yet. They've just been protected. Right. So, you know, again, it's a combination of everything. You got to get that. You got to learn that grit. Yeah. But you also can't make that grit be like, this is all that's here for me and that this is forever. It's, you know what I mean? Like you can graduate up. Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, it's just a balance. I think about when I have kids, like how much I want to give them, you know, like as far as how easy, because you can make it as easy as you want. That's right. You know, what's the balance? Oh, yeah. That's where balance is important. That's right. That's right. And it's, you know, balance at the end of the day is, you know, balance is unique to each person. Yeah. Each person has their own weights, you know, their own lives, their own everything is unique to yourself. So the hardest thing that I've learned, and this is the reason that I got to play baseball so long, is because when all my friends were doing things when I was young, I can remember, like, you know, I grew up going to church a lot as a kid. Wednesday night youth group, I would always leave, go to the batting cage and hit, and then come back. And I missed out on a lot of things because I was working, I was training. It was I learned, even like Myron Golden talks about this, and I love it. He talks about, if you're going to be a sports fan, there's a right and a wrong way to do that, right? And it's like, so some people watch the game to be entertained. And like, you know, as a Yankees fan, Yankees fans are the best ever. However, there's some folks that their lives have been ruined by them losing 2 games in the World Series. The outcome of those games don't affect me one way or the other, which means you can't let them affect you, right? So Myron asked, he goes, the team that's your team, he was like, are you their team? You know, you got to ask yourself that. So he's like, are you watching them to be entertained, or are you watching them to learn and to be them, to be inspired? And that's probably why you watched the fighting and stuff that you watched, is because it was a part of the business. Oh, yeah. Right? And anytime I go to a concert or anything, whether it's an artist I love or a team I love or whatever, I still, when we're at Yankee Stadium watching my favorite team play, I'm still thinking like, I'm too old to play now, but I should still be on that field doing something. Right? So I go there to watch it, to be inspired. Yeah. And then I take that inspiration, and then you got to act on it, right? So I don't have time to watch too many more games. Yeah. Got to go act on it a little bit. So again, it's just on how you take in everything. Yeah, no, absolutely. What would you say inspires you the most right now? People. There's people that are just ahead of me in their journey. They're not better than me. They're just further along in their journey than I am right now. And finding those people and surrounding yourself with those people, getting access to those people. I'll use my buddy Brad Lee as an example. So I got introduced to Brad online before I ever met him. And Brad Lee is his name, L-E-A. So first thing I thought he was like a Chinese guy, right, before I ever saw him online. So now I'm looking at this white dude, and I'm like, well, this can't be the same person. However, I like a lot of what this guy's saying. And then over time, I got to meet him and spend time with him, and I saw his office, and I saw his studios, and I saw what he's doing with the podcast, and all these things. And he's been him and a few other people in that space have been very inspirational to me, because they're just further along in their journey than I am. And they've showed me, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. I just didn't know exactly what it looked like or what it was called. You know, so again, it's access to those things. You know, those people have, the people I'm talking about have made a lot more money or made more money to this point than I have, right? Well, that doesn't mean I'm not going to make it or achieved what they've achieved. It just means they've done it first. But they literally showed me the way. And now when I have access to them, if it took them 5 years, it might only take me 1 or 2, because I'm getting the knowledge that they learned along the way. So that's huge, man. It is. And let me tell you something about making money.
You know, there's a certain point with money where the only thing that you can do different is jets or yachts.
Yeah.
What level of jets and yachts?
Yeah.
And impact is where it's at.
Yeah.
It's impact. You know,
Yeah.
so once you're at, you know, over 40 to 50 million net worth, you know, you could sell, have your jet,
Yeah.
you know, have a nice boat. But like what, I see people chasing more and more money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it doesn't take that much. You know, I mean, it's a lot, but I'm saying like, what's the difference between 50 and 100 and a billion or 5 billion?
Yeah.
And, you know, at some point, I mean, I am at a point where I'm like, I care about impact. That's what matters. Yeah. How do you make the biggest impact? And I think with you, you know, that's in the back of your head because you have the Creative Lab studios.
Yep.
And I didn't, yeah, it's the Hit Lab studio.
Correct. Yep.
And you know, that's an impact play too, right?
It is. I heard Brooke, I can't remember her last name, Live Out Loud Brooke, great author, great speaker. She said, your impact is when you take your God-given abilities and apply it to the marketplace. I was like, boom, love that, right? So, and then I literally was just, I saw somebody sent me a clip in the last 3 days talking about Rothschild, richest man on earth, and how he said if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't do it.
What did he say?
Right. So I'll have to look it up and I've sent it to you. But he basically said, because like I'm not free, all I do is worry about it. And then they asked the second richest guy on planet Earth the same thing, why he didn't do what he did. And it was because he's like, because I can't enjoy it, basically. Right. So all money is a tool that is referenced back to time in some way. Right. So, you know, for me, like the reason that like the more times I can fly private versus not is because it's at least 2 or 3 hours that I save each way and standing in lines at airports, security, and so on and so forth. That's one of my favorite things Brad says when he gets asked, hey, man, what time's your flight? He goes, when I get there.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that because he's not having to spend, you know, he got 3 extra hours that day I didn't get to go to the same place.
Yeah.
Right? Life's fair. Everybody's price is just different. So do I want to be the richest man on planet Earth? Not today. Do I need to make more? Do I want to make more money? Yes, because there's things that like I could do to have more time on the things that truly matter, whether it be family, myself, or giving back or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? So money's just a tool, and money's often the villain, you know, in a lot of things. As growing up in middle-class Nashville, Tennessee, you almost looked at people who had a lot of money as like they must have did something wrong to get it type thing, you know? So money's not the villain. Money's just a tool. But I think it amplifies who you are. If you're a good person, I think it makes you a great person. And if you're a bad person, I think it can make you a really bad person.
Yeah, that's a great point.